It's a different topic altogether today as we turn to another conversation. We'll look at labor relations from the standpoint of the law. Of course, that has been here for quite a while, even in the days of the military in Nigeria. But today, it will appear that the dynamics in contemporary times continue to redefine this landscape altogether. The last few days have been a bit, if you like, very controversial. From the standpoint of the new policy now being introduced by the federal government, which it says it believes will help to, for want of better words, recalibrate the engagement or the rules of engagement regarding labor relations in Nigeria. But we understand this has been a long time coming. Several efforts before now, we are hearing, had been made as well to make this happen. But the real trouble now began when Labour reacted to say that this new policy, which some persons even now say is an extant law of some kind, will not only clip its wings, talking about organized labor in Nigeria, including all of its trade unions, but will make it almost impossible, all right, for unions across this country to protest peacefully or even call for industrial action. For some people, this is a reality that makes their head spin, because it's not something that has settled with many Nigerians, especially under what is believed generally to be democracy. So the question really is, if organized labor cannot protest, what then are the alternatives they are left with? Are there other routes, if you like, by which they can air their grievances in the event that government reneges on promises made to organized labor? These are concerns that have been expressed by not only the Nigerian workers or leaders of the labor union, but they are also very worrisome for citizens and critical stakeholders in the space. I'm Agumofwegwe. As always, it's a delight to welcome you to Scale of Justice. After the break, we will put the conversation on the road for you full throttle. All right, so we'll begin first of all by just creating a small background to this whole conversation. Just a few days ago, the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Comrade Joe Ajaero, had said that all Nigerians, particularly workers and stakeholders, must stand up against this new policy, which they have referred to as, quote, reprehensible. My guest on the program today is the lead attorney at Lehi Attorneys, and he's here to help us find some sense in this particular conversation. Barrister Yemi Olanyo, I'll say it's a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, great. So let's begin. First of all, you lawyers instinctively talk about people's rights and how that they have the rights to associate, freedom to assemble, and so on and so forth. When you look at this new, if you like, policy being introduced by the federal government in Nigeria today, and then you check that against the position of the law, you are a lawyer. What are your thoughts?
Okay, thank you for having me, first of all. So it's quite interesting, right? So we have the Constitution.
Right.
Every law derives their strength, their backing from the Constitution. Section 1 sub 3 of the Constitution says any law that is inconsistent with the provision of the Constitution is, to the extent of its inconsistency, null and void. One part. Now, we now have the part of the Constitution that talks about fundamental human rights, right? And lists all the fundamental human rights every Nigerian has. Section 40 speaks about the right of association, right? You have the right to form associations, be members of trade unions, and such groups. And that is why you can see that Labour has always had the right to protest and to form associations, and that's why you can form 3 or 4 people can come together now and form an association. It's because the Constitution guarantees them that rights to. But then again, and this is the interesting part, it comes with exceptions.
Right.
So, despite with the fact that, oh yes, these laws exist, but there are certain exceptions that sort of limit it. Now, the question that would now come up is this NIRP, right? Is it such that affects labor's rights? That's an interesting part for. I am looking for what the court's interpretation of it's going to be, because Section 45 of the Constitution clearly states that nothing in Section 37, 38, 39, 40. 40 is the operative section that we're looking at right now, which has to do with freedom of association. Will affect any other law which for the purpose of government is to promote public safety, public order, public morality. So what that means, or what the interpretation of that is that when any law that seems to curtail Section 40 is enforced, we cannot say that it is null and void. So it's going to be a very interesting. I look forward to the coming days, because you cannot stop protests, right? But then again, the question that government is going to be saying, how do we limit it so it does not affect other people's rights?
Right.
Yes, sir.
It's interesting. I mean, beyond the law, they say that necessity is the mother of all invention.
Yeah.
I mean, to your mind, what could be the factors, the if you like, the variables the federal government must have looked at to say, look, there's no better time to introduce this sort of framework than now?
So I'm sure they've looked at certain policies that they want to introduce that they feel might trigger labor to protest. So they are more like what they are. When you want to farm, you're clearing the ground. So that's what I see that they're doing. So there's a lot of trying to understand. Okay, let us clear the ground, so by the time we bring in these policies, they cannot do this and that. And again, the reality is that when labor goes on strike, and especially when all the arms and levels of labor go on strike, it's a total shutdown. You can't do business. You sometimes, if aviation joins in, you can't travel. If you have jobs that are pending, it means that you're stuck. If you have international transactions that you're doing, everything is on a standstill until government and labor come to a truce of some sort. So I think that government is trying to bring in something, and they just like, okay, let us clear the path for when we bring in what we want to bring.
Well, quite interesting. Again, like you said, even the Nigeria Labour Congress, the Trade Union Congress, and all of their affiliates are products, for want of better words, of the law in itself. Incidentally, too, which makes it quite interesting on both sides. On the side of the labor, on the side of the government, you have some of the brightest lawyers this country has ever produced, and all of that. Do you see ignorance of the law here, or is there a systematic method of trying to, if you like, circumvent the law or dare the law?
So I would say that the law. So I always say this, that the law is not always black and white. There are different colors in it. Right. So a great lawyer is not a lawyer that knows the law. A great lawyer is a lawyer that knows where to find the law. There is no absolute law in Nigeria or in the world. There are always loopholes. Now, one loophole or one angle that government is trying to fit into is Section 45. So it's now be interesting to see the extent and the limits of the restrictions that will be placed in, because Section 45 says that any other law can be brought in that sort of, let me use the word, tramples on your right to association if it is for the sake of public safety, public morality, and public order. That is what it says. That's what Section 45 says. So that is the angle through which government is coming in. So you cannot really say that maybe it's the law. It's now who has the there's something we say in court that the both parties know the truth. That is the judge that is on trial, because it's the judge that has to look at it holistically. This party presents so and so evidence. This party, so he looks at it in the overall interest of justice and in relation to what the law says. So that is where it is. It can fling either way, right? But it's going to be interesting what our courts are going to say about it.
Okay, so I was going to ask this because every significant piece of law in this country is as they say, is an act of parliament, right? Is this not supposed to also pass through that routes, parliamentary procedure and all of that? Is it just supposed to be some sort of, if you like, 2-minute instant noodle kind of piece of work?
If you remember, during President Muhammadu Buhari's regime and President Osinbajo's Nigeria regime, they had a lot of executive orders.
Right.
So executive orders can also come in. You can't. Everything cannot be put into legislation at once. The process of legislation takes time. First reading, second reading, and all that. It's a long time.
Right.
But nothing stops you from having certain policies. Take for example, let me break it down like this. In a private organization, you have employee handbook. The employee handbook let's say that's the constitution.
Right.
But nothing stops management from issuing guidelines on dressing, guidelines on
in addition
to it. But the key always is that it should not be inconsistent with the constitution. The constitution is the key. As long as we put it side by side the constitution and it offends the constitution, then it is null and void. So you can decide to bring it up, it will not stand. There are so many laws that have come up, and because they're inconsistent with provision,
they died on arrival.
Yes, because by the time the court looks at it vis-a-vis the provision of the constitution, every law is tested by the constitution. No matter how great it is, or no matter the purpose, it's tested by the constitution, and that's why the courts need that grave independence to be able to say, indeed, this is what the constitution says, and this is what we're going to stand by.
Comrade Joe Ajaero, the president of the Nigeria Labour Congress, says this is not the first time this sort of move is being made. For example, what do you reckon could be the reasons previous attempts didn't go through?
It would also be based off the constitution again, and then maybe other sound judgments that this could be giving. Let me use a modern language of the vibes of dictatorship, because the policy, even though we've not seen the entirety of it, seeks to sort of stifle labor expressions, right, by saying that they cannot protest under certain parameters, right? So it's given that situation of dictatorship, that you cannot protest whatever I give to you with dialogue. But again, it talks about dialogue, so it's not completely saying don't protest. There's a provision for dialogue. But again, most times we've seen that results come after protests. Because by the time they are dialoguing, it's back and forth. This one says this, that one says this. But by the time tools are down, government sees the need to up its game, and
then government is jolted into action.
Because it's and it has happened time and time again. All the protests that NLC has had have always yielded certain amounts of results. I mean, some of them we expect them to last longer, to get better results. But I mean, sometimes they get smaller results and they are fine with it. So I think that they might have been advised against it. But again, it depends on who is this CNC. The CNC might, let us leave this aside. Let us do this like this. And that CNC might say, no, let us pursue this. And again, it depends on who is advising who.
Okay, we're taking a break real shortly, but you just in passing highlighted the elements of executive order. Is this pretty much that case, or do you think that is essentially the kind of string the government ultimately wants to push?
I think that might be what they were ultimately want to push. I noticed something with this government, maybe the last government also. So there's a lot of testing. So sometimes they throw in some things, see the reaction, and now try to play around it or fine tune it. So this is just a policy now. I want to see the proper legal framework for that policy. The policies, the full content of the policy has not yet been released, right? So when we see the full content of the policy, we're able to know in what channel are we putting it under? Is it a proper legislation? Is it just an executive order? Is it just a policy? Is it a policy issue to who and for what? So it's going to be interesting.
All right, great. Let's bump in on the break at this point, everyone. Quite a long drawn-out issue is going to be, no doubt about that. Labour, of course, is not backing down anytime soon. We see that already happening with the response that has come out from the top echelon of the Nigeria Labour Congress. We'll take a quick break now. When we return, quick heads up, we'll look at, first of all, is it possible that this will end up as, if you like, subject of litigation at some point, given where we are today about this issue, and how much more work might we have to do in terms of having to recalibrate, if you like, labour relations in Nigeria? All of that coming shortly. Please do stay with us. Well, thank you for staying with us, everyone. This is the second part of this conversation, focusing on labour relations and the new policy now being introduced by the federal government. So, Barrister Olayo, let's now look at the possibility that this could end up as a subject of litigation. But of course, you have said the government is probably trying to throw the kite and see where it lands and what the response will be, and things like that. But again, the Constitution, which of course lawyers refer to as the Grundom, will be the decider in the final analysis. But really, who holds the aces, as they say?
So this is the part where that's why I didn't decide. I didn't want to be a judge. Right. I was thinking to. It's going to be interesting, and I think that the courts will ultimately consider what benefits the entirety of Nigerians. Because, like we say, the laws were made for the man, not the man for the laws. Right. So the laws must serve the generality of Nigerians. So if what the policy provides is that there are certain steps to take before a total shutdown or a total lockdown, then fine. But if it says that it must stop at that, we must dialogue, and Labour does not have the right to protest, then I think that that's where there's going to be a problem. And the courts must protect, because it's a fundamental right that I have the right to protest. However, you know that your right stops when that person's right starts. So even if you, so that's why, and that's why there's back then university, there's a funny word that people say, that you have a right to speak, but you don't have a right to what I would do after you speak, because that's you have said what you want to say. I have the right to the
consequence.
Exactly, there will always be consequences for certain actions. So but I think that the courts would not really look at it and look at the policy. By the time we see the policy in full, we would know if it's a total bar on the right of NLC, and then I told NLC, go to court, fight it out.
Do we have instances of countries, for example, that have walked this path before, where, I mean, the unions cannot protest, for example, and what does that feel like?
So when you look at countries like that don't have a democratic system, yes, you have been right. Where are you protesting to? Yes, we are a democracy. It's a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. Right. So it's what the people say that stands. So if the people say we don't want this, then in a sane and normal society, that is what should operate. That's what should go. But again, we're in Nigeria and things are developing. So if it's not a dictatorial system, I don't see why we should have a problem with people protesting. It's like a small child. You can't be beating a small child and expect the child not to cry and say, I'll be beating you, and the child and say, don't cry. it's impossible. It's the protests. It's a sign of discontent with whatever is going on. Nobody, no sane person just goes out to protest if something wrong has not been done to the person. So it's an integral part of democracy that people can air out their views, and that is why you have to have government that listens to people and then is able to act on the grievances and resolve the issues that people have.
We're seeing in this country now, this is a bit of, if you like, maybe we're veering off a little, but still within the whole gambit of, the whole gamut of how labor relates with the government and all of that. This happens mostly with the academic staff union of universities, ASU. So ASU goes on strike, for example, government waits for a week, 2, 3, maybe 1 month, and then says, well, if you don't return to work, no pay, we're going to activate the no work, no pay, kind of thing and all of that. Is that constitutional? Is it enforceable? Or is this just, let's say whatever we have to say, at least let the record show that we need to talk?
Yeah, so they have the right, ASU has the rights to, and ASU's grievances are genuine grievances. How much is a professor being paid? How much is a doctor being paid? Classical example. And I thought about it coming here. Super Falcons and the Tigers were given $100,000 each and landed properties. What does the civil servant need to do to be given that type of amount?
Well, they need to continue to raise their gains at the end of 35 years.
So even after 35 years, how many civil servants or public servants can say that legitimately they got $100,000 by serving their country? Remember, civil servants and I'm going to put ASU also are an integral part of Nigeria's working system. Remove civil service from this country, and I can tell you that the country is going to fall as like a pack of cards. So these are people that you must ensure are well taken care of. So when ASU goes on strike, government makes promises, and because ASU believes that yes, our job is to train people, teach the students, ensure that they come out better, they tend to bulge once, twice to see and to make concessions. Right. But then again, we keep saying it that government, because government must be a continuum. But again, we just see that different governments have different policies and different ways that they view things. So a government could have had an agreement with with ASU at a particular point in time. A new government comes and says, "Oh no, this is not how this is. This is not regarding the economic realities and all that. We can't go that." And that is why there's always that back and forth between government and ASU. So it's for ASU to just keep on pressing, and hopefully we get a government that eventually wants to see that the educational system thrives in Nigeria.
On a final note, do you think this development, which you have been talking about the last few minutes, now calls for maybe a second look at labor laws in Nigeria?
Yes, we need to look at the labor laws, but again, we need to and when I say we need to look at labor laws, we also need to look at our constitution.
Overall,
yes, it's there are tiny little bits of our constitution that need certain overall changes, and that's why there's been a lot of clamor for change of constitution. These amendments, it's not going to make the soup sweet. Right? So the constitution needs a total overhaul. Right? And for us to have a constitution that is for Nigerians and made by Nigerians for Nigerians. If not, we will just come back here again and have the same conversation about these other laws, because these other laws still have take their validity from the constitution. Yes, our labor laws are good, and again, who's going to pass labor laws? The same government and the same National Assembly and all that. So will they pass a law that they know that does not give them control over situations? Probably not.
I'd like to say a big thank you to you, Yemi Olayo, for coming to share these thoughts with us. We do value them. I've been talking with Yemi Olayo. He's a lawyer. Of course, he's the lead partner at Lehi Attorneys. He's been shedding light on this new policy the federal government is pushing in terms of how to, if you like, redefine labor relations in Nigeria. Apparently, it's an ongoing conversation, so Global Television will continue to track this development for you. And we are Mofwebe. Thank you very much for watching. Our broadcast continues here on Global Television.